It was meant to be the most joyous occasion of my life. I had just exchanged vows, the music swelled, champagne flowed freely, and everything felt like a dream until my mother approached with a glass of red wine. Her smile, however, was unsettling. It lacked genuine warmth, the kind that never reached her eyes, reminiscent of my childhood punishments for unseen transgressions. I accepted the wine, brought it to my lips, but then hesitated. The aroma was off, not spoiled or sour, but subtly wrong. It hinted at cough syrup, with a faint, sharp chemical note. Just then, my sister arrived, laughing heartily. Without a second thought, I offered her the glass, a smile gracing my lips. "You deserve the first toast," I declared. She took a sip. 30 minutes later, she collapsed on the dance floor. What would your reaction be if you discovered the poison was intended for you? If the person you trusted entirely attempted to eliminate you on your wedding day, all while wearing a smile? What you are about to encounter is more than just a narrative. It is a stark warning. This incident wasn't an isolated attempt by my mother to dictate my life, but it nearly proved to be her last. Remain with me, for by the end of this account, you will understand precisely the steps I took to ensure such a thing would never recur. And believe me, she was completely blindsided. My name is Iris Whitmore. I'm 34 years old, a dedicated community arts educator, and my home is situated just outside Asheville, North Carolina. My friends often describe me as the calm, stable one, someone who maintains composure even when chaos reigns. Yet, nothing could have prepared me for the events of my wedding day, not even a lifetime dedicated to maintaining harmony. The ceremony had concluded mere moments before. It was a pleasant spring afternoon, the sky a gentle grey blue, and laughter echoed through the air like wind rustling through leaves. The vineyard chosen for our wedding carried faint scents of lilac and freshly cut grass. Callum, my husband, stood nearby, discussing travel plans with his uncle. Guests mingled in the courtyard, champagne flutes in hand, murmuring congratulations. Everything appeared exactly as I had envisioned, save for an inexplicable knot of anxiety in my stomach. I was adjusting my veil, feigning enjoyment of the moment, when I spotted her. My mother, Celeste, approaching with practiced grace, a glass of red wine in each hand. Her pearls shimmered against her pale blue dress, and her smile was fixed, as always, too taut, too flawless, like a mask carefully donned. "For the bride," she announced, extending one glass with that distinctive tone, gentle, almost affectionate, yet subtly underlaid with something colder. Her eyes sparkled, not with joy, but with something else entirely, perhaps anticipation. I instinctively reached for the glass, but the moment my fingers closed around the stem, I hesitated. The scent wafted up. It was robust, certainly, but an odd undertone persisted. Medicinal, faintly chemical. For a brief second, it brought to mind old hospital corridors and the back of my grandmother's medicine cabinet. I subtly tilted the glass, pretending to admire its hue. "New vintage?" I inquired lightly, striving to keep my voice steady. Celeste's smile widened. "Imported, special order, just for today." I nodded, but my grip tightened. My body was reacting before my mind could fully process. I wasn't frightened, not precisely. I simply felt an aversion. Something felt profoundly wrong. It was then that Mara appeared beside me. My sister, Mara, 3 years my elder, had always been a luminous presence in any room. She possessed an effortless charm that could make strangers laugh and old friends feel like family. That day she looked radiant in a muted rose dress, her dark curls elegantly pinned back, cheeks flushed from dancing. She approached mid-laugh, wiping a tear from the corner of her eye. "Someone said you were in hiding," she teased, gently nudging me with her elbow. "Is the bride finally overwhelmed?" I forced a smile. "Just taking a moment." Mara reached for the glass in my hand. "Let me steal a sip. You'll never get to finish it anyway. She was right. Since the ceremony, I had been pulled in countless directions. I paused for a beat, then released my hold. "Be my guest," I said, chuckling as if it were nothing. "You deserve it more than I do." She lifted the glass with a wink and took a sip. Celeste observed with a serene expression, then handed me the other glass and gracefully moved off to mingle. I remained motionless, feeling as though I had just rounded a corner into my own life and encountered something I was not meant to see. The moment passed, music played. Someone clinked a fork against a glass and offered a toast. I smiled when expected. I navigated through the crowd. I danced with Callum, but the knot in my stomach remained, and I did not touch the wine. Approximately 30 minutes later, just as I was assisting one of the waitstaff in adjusting a row of candles that had blown out along the buffet table, I heard a shout. "Mara's name!" My blood ran cold. I turned and saw Mara in the centre of the courtyard, swaying slightly, her hand gripping the edge of a nearby chair. All colour had drained from her face, her lips parted as if she were attempting to speak but unable to. Then, like a tree collapsing in slow motion, she collapsed. The sound of her body hitting the flagstones was swallowed by an abrupt silence, followed by screams, the clatter of shoes, and guests rushing forward. Someone shouted to call an ambulance. Callum was already kneeling beside her. Tamsin pushed through the crowd. My mother arrived moments later, gasping, already holding a damp napkin and fanning Mara's face with the dramatic affectation of a soap opera character. "She must have been dehydrated," Celeste remarked over her shoulder, not looking at me. "Poor thing, or maybe it was low blood sugar." I neither moved nor spoke. I stood there, frozen, because my mind had returned to the scent of that wine, that almost sweet, synthetic, bitter edge, the smile Celeste had worn when she handed it to me. The thought I couldn't banish was this. That glass was not intended for Mara. It was intended for me. And the only reason I was standing there, upright, was because I had passed it on. No one else knew. No one else had witnessed the exchange. But in that moment something shifted. Something broke free within me, even as the paramedics arrived and wheeled my sister into the back of the ambulance. I knew this was no accident. This was a warning, and it was not the first. Back home from the hospital, everything felt subdued. The lights in our living room, once warm and comforting, now seemed too soft, as if concealing something. I sat on the edge of the couch, still in my wedding dress, shoes kicked off, hair half fallen from its pins. My husband, Callum, hovered near the kitchen, offering to make tea, but his words barely registered. All I could think about was her smile. Celeste had stood at the edge of the crowd after the ambulance departed, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. People gathered around her, murmuring kind words, assuming a mother's heartbreak. But as she leaned in to embrace me goodbye, I noticed how cool her hands felt against the bare skin of my back. No trembling, no grief, just composure. Then she had whispered, "You did great, sweetheart," as if congratulating me for my performance. That sentence clung to me like a splinter in my brain. You did great. What could it possibly mean? I hadn't cried yet. Not when Mara collapsed. Not during the ensuing chaos. Not even when the doctor confirmed she was stable but required overnight observation for possible toxic exposure. Instead, a dense, silent panic had taken root within me, heavy and unmoving like leaden fog. Callum now sat beside me, gently squeezing my hand. I nodded at him, saying I merely needed rest. But truly, I needed quiet. I needed space to think, because something within me had irrevocably shifted. And it wasn't just fear, it was recognition. Celeste had always smiled like that. I had just refused to see it. That night, lying in bed, eyes open in the darkness, memories resurfaced with frightening clarity. I was 8 again, sitting at the piano for the 3rd hour that day. My fingers were stiff, weary, but Celeste stood behind me, a metronome steadily ticking in her hand. "You want to be impressive, don't you?" she had said. Talent is nothing without discipline. When, at 13, I wanted to wear jeans to my cousin's wedding, she laid out a cream-coloured dress and matching ballet flats. She declared it would photograph better, adding that no one approved of a girl who appeared to put in no effort. And then there was Andrew. I was 19, happily in love in that overly confident college way. He made me laugh until my stomach ached. Celeste met him once. Just once. The very next day, she stated, "I don't like the way he looks at you. There's something off about him." I had protested, cried, told her she didn't understand. But she did what she always did. She planted seeds of doubt, scattering warnings like breadcrumbs until I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, convincing myself she was right, that I was wrong, that I should end it. I had, and she never mentioned him again, simply smiling as if she had tidied up an unsightly mess. Now, lying in the dark beside my new husband, I began to comprehend that none of it had been protection, not the piano, not the dresses, not Andrew. It had always been control, cunningly disguised as care. The following morning, I opened my phone and found a message from Tamsin, my oldest friend. She had been invited to the wedding months ago, even RSVP'd, but never appeared. At the time, she claimed something last minute had arisen. I had believed her. I believed everything back then. Her message was brief, hesitant. "Iris, I've been thinking about yesterday non-stop. I need to be honest. Your mum called me 2 weeks ago. Said you'd been overwhelmed, weren't feeling yourself. She asked me not to come. Said she thought too many voices might stress you out." I found myself in a quandary, wishing to respect her personal space. I meticulously reviewed her message 3 times before crafting my response. I expressed my gratitude for her openness and calmly stated my lack of anger. For truly, how could I harbour such a feeling? Celeste had always possessed an uncanny ability to present herself logically, making even acts of manipulation feel like genuine acts of kindness. Bit by bit, the fragmented pieces began to coalesce. Celeste hadn't merely attempted to harm me. She had meticulously constructed an entire, fabricated reality around me, subtly undermining my self-assurance and making me doubt my own judgment. For years, she had systematically muted my voice, all while maintaining a facade of warmth. Mara, Andrew, Tamsin, and even Callum, she had sought to exert control over each of them, albeit through different approaches. Only now, with my sister confined to a hospital bed, her face pallid, and the lingering taste of that specific wine still unsettlingly present in my memory, could I finally perceive the truth with absolute clarity. This wasn't an isolated incident of malice. It was a deeply ingrained pattern, a sophisticated system of psychological entrapment, a cage meticulously disguised as a sanctuary. And I was no longer willing to feign ignorance of the bars. That fateful morning, I confronted my reflection in the mirror. My hair was dishevelled, my makeup smudged, yet my eyes gleamed with an unfamiliar sharpness. Reaching for my phone once more, this time not to message a friend, but to open a new note, I typed at the top. The smile that didn't mean love. Below it, I wrote, "One-word document." Because this time I vowed not to weep in secret, not to undermine myself, not to rationalize it away. This time I would meticulously gather every single strand of her insidious machinations. I would meticulously unravel the entire convoluted web, and I would not remain silent. The morning after dispatching the message to Tams, Iris awoke with a steadfast conviction blossoming in her chest. There was an unresolved matter, something tangible, that demanded her attention. She had replayed the critical moment countless times in her mind, her mother's hand placing the wineglass in hers, the peculiar, strained smile that failed to reach her eyes, and the faintly chemical, unsettling aroma that clung to the wine. Then came the sudden switch with Mara, followed by the collapse. It couldn't possibly be a coincidence. Iris required proof, not mere suspicion or a gut feeling. She needed irrefutable evidence. She waited for Callum to depart for his morning meeting. He gave her a swift kiss and a troubled glance, but abstained from asking her destination. He didn't need to. The silence between them, once fraught with uncertainty, had evolved into a silent understanding. Iris needed to pursue this on her own terms. She contacted the event venue, speaking with a courteous young man named Reed, who managed post-wedding logistics. She fabricated a story about having left a small pearl bracelet, a cherished family heirloom from her grandmother, in the bridal suite. Reed, ever obliging, was happy to arrange a meeting to check the lost and found. It was a plausibly constructed excuse. Upon her arrival at the venue, it was almost deserted. The string lights had been dismantled, and the scattered flower petals cleared away. What had been enchanting just days prior now appeared strangely sterile. Reed escorted her to the bridal suite, engaging in polite conversation. Iris feigned a search, running her fingertips over the empty vanity, peering behind a cushion, then emitting a soft sigh. "No luck," she conceded with a forced smile, "but thank you for checking nonetheless." "Of course," Reed replied, offering a sympathetic gaze. "Is there anything else I can assist you with?" She hesitated, feigning deliberation. "This might sound rather peculiar," she began, "but I'm attempting to locate a specific bottle of red wine from the reception. One of my guests experienced an unfortunate reaction, and I simply want to ascertain that it wasn't the wine itself. Do you happen to have any leftover bottles?" Reed nodded slowly. "We perform an inventory after every event. Any unopened bottles are returned to cold storage for a few days before redistribution. Come with me." He led her through a narrow hallway into a back kitchen, then through another door into the cold storage room. Shelves laden with meticulously stacked wine bottles lined the walls, carefully categorized by event and date. Reed moved toward a labeled section. "This is your event right here. We had 2 cases remaining of the red you selected. Zinfandel, correct?" Iris nodded, but her gaze had already strayed. A single bottle, distinct from the organized cases, sat at the far left of the shelf, adorned with a handwritten note. "Not on list check." She advanced before Reed noticed. The label on this particular bottle was different. It was a darker, matte finish with unfamiliar cursive lettering. The brand was not one she recalled approving. More significantly, it did not align with the wedding's wine inventory whatsoever. "Mind if I examine that one?" she asked nonchalantly, indicating the conspicuous bottle. Reed picked it up, a slight frown creasing his brow. "Strange. I don't recall this being part of our stock. It might have been brought in by a guest. That could explain why it was flagged." Iris maintained a neutral expression. "Could I take it? Just to confirm it's not the one that caused the issue?" He hesitated. "Technically, we're required to retain unknown bottles until they're officially signed off, but..." She offered him a small, grateful smile. "Please," she urged. "It's for my sister's peace of mind. She's still quite shaken." That sealed it. Reed handed over the bottle with a nod and escorted her back out. Once outside, Iris settled into her car and focused on the bottle resting on the passenger seat. It was unopened. The cork appeared undisturbed. She held it to the light. The liquid inside was a deep, slightly viscous red. Her stomach tightened. She immediately texted Tamsin. "Found something. Can I drop it off?" Tamsin's reply was instantaneous. "Of course, bring it. I'll have Jules look at it." Jules, Tamsin's college roommate, was now a research chemist employed at a university lab. Iris drove directly to Tamsin's apartment, arriving within 30 minutes. She handed over the bottle without uttering a word. Tamsin, observing Iris's expression, refrained from asking questions. "I'll get it to her tonight," she promised. "She won't inquire about anything until we're prepared to discuss it." "Ensure she handles it with extreme care," Iris instructed. "Like evidence." That specific word lingered in the air a fraction too long. Later that evening, Iris submitted a formal request for the security footage from the event venue. She claimed to have misplaced a sentimental item and needed to review the video to determine when she might have lost it. It was a long shot, but she chose her words carefully. She made no mention of her mother, nor the wine. She simply framed the request in a manner that seemed entirely reasonable. A few hours later, her inbox chimed. "We are currently retrieving the footage from the event. Due to privacy regulations, we will review and send you the appropriate segments. Please allow 48 to 72 hours. Iris exhaled. That would suffice for now. Back in her apartment, she sat at her desk, gazing at the expanding folder labelled Mum Incident. Inside were screenshots of messages, the guest list with names mysteriously absent, and now a new entry. Unknown bottle retrieved. Sample sent. Her hands were steady, her mind sharper than it had been in years. She wasn't spiraling. She wasn't paranoid. She was meticulously investigating. For the first time since the wedding, she felt an undeniable sense of control. While no message had yet arrived from Jules, Iris found herself unable to remain still. The image of that wine bottle, the gradual unravelling of long-held deceptions, and the tightening knot of unresolved emotion in her chest propelled her down a path she had purposefully sidestepped for over a decade. There was something else Celeste had taken from her, and she needed to reclaim it, even if it was merely the unadulterated truth. She opened an archived photo folder on her laptop, labelled UVA Freshman Spring, and there he was, Dorian Heath, lean, with a sharply defined jawline and those remarkably kind eyes that had once regarded her as a world worth revolving around. Their abrupt breakup had occurred with barely a word exchanged. At the time, she had attributed the fault to him. Her mother had shown her a grainy, low-light photograph of Dorian outside a bar, standing in disconcerting proximity to another girl. "This is who he truly is," Celeste had declared. "I'm saving you." At 19, Iris had believed her wholeheartedly. She had always believed her mother. Now she was riddled with doubt. It required some diligent searching, but she eventually found him. Dorian was now a public school science teacher in a small town located 40 minutes outside Charlottesville. His name appeared on the school website, accompanied by a modest faculty portrait. It felt surreal, a real person, not a phantom from a doctored photograph. She stared at the picture for an unnecessarily long period. The email she sent was concise. She offered few explanations, simply expressing her desire to reconnect and clarify the circumstances of their past. He responded within an hour. "Let me know when and where. I think we both deserve clarity." They met at a quiet coffee shop, strategically located halfway between their respective towns. It was the kind of establishment where the furniture was mismatched and the staff sported ironically quirky hats. Dorian appeared older, yet not world-weary. There was a newfound composure about him, a settledness she didn't recall from the college boy who once stayed up with her until 3 a.m., reciting poetry and passionately debating Hitchcock films. He rose when she entered. "Iris." His voice held a cautious warmth. "Hi, Dorian." She settled into the chair opposite him, taking a deep breath. "Thank you for agreeing to this." "I've contemplated this meeting for a considerable time," he admitted, "even if I never genuinely expected it to materialize." She smiled faintly. "Neither did I." A brief silence ensued as they both stared at their coffee cups, uncertain of who should initiate the conversation. "I need to ask you something," Iris finally articulated. "Back then, when we broke up, were you aware of my mother's involvement?" Dorian's eyebrows arched slightly, and then he leaned back. "So, you know." "I know she showed me a photograph," Iris continued. "You, standing with someone outside a bar. She claimed you were cheating, that you were emotionally unstable, that I needed to end it before things worsened." Dorian exhaled slowly. "I anticipated she would eventually distort the truth. What truly transpired?" "She hired someone to follow me," he stated. I didn't realize it until after our split, when a friend in the psychology department mentioned seeing a woman asking questions about me. Not a student, older, impeccably dressed. She introduced herself as Mrs. Campbell, which I now understand was one of your mother's former aliases. Iris blinked. She did that? She did more than that. The photograph she showed you, it was taken after a group study session. That woman in the portrait, she was both married and gay. We had been laughing about something entirely different, but from the right angle and with the right narrative, a new truth emerged. Iris swallowed hard. The old sting of betrayal flared anew, yet this time it was strangely inverted. There's something else, he continued, his voice dropping to a quieter tone. Your mum wasn't completely wrong about everything. The university actually disciplined me. Iris's gaze sharpened. I got into a heated argument with a professor. He insulted a student during a presentation, and I just lost control. I threw a chair across the room. I didn't actually hit anyone, but it was certainly not appropriate. They placed me on probation for a semester. She remained silent. Dorian met her eyes directly. I'm not proud of that incident. I was 21, foolish and constantly angry. But I was genuinely trying to improve myself. I really believed I had a future with you. Then she intervened. Iris sat motionless for a considerable time, her eyes fixed on the table. She didn't invent your imperfection, she finally murmured. She merely observed and waited for it. And when it surfaced, she seized it. She exploited it. Dorian nodded in agreement. Precisely. That's what has always terrified me the most. She doesn't outright fabricate lies. She masterfully manipulates the truth. She wraps her control so tightly around established facts that you eventually stop questioning them. Iris's breathing slowed. The intricate design of Celeste's game was clearer than ever before. She understood, Iris whispered. If she had simply made something up entirely, I would have challenged her. But if she used something real, something undeniable, I would have complied without argument. Because how could I ever dispute the truth? That's her winning strategy, Dorian affirmed. She weaponizes your own reality against you. They remained in silence for several minutes. The air between them, while heavy, lacked any bitterness. Finally, Iris rose. Thank you. I truly needed to hear this. I needed to see for myself that I wasn't just imagining things. You weren't delusional, Dorian said gently. Just manipulated. She offered him a soft, melancholic smile. I hope you found happiness now. I have, he replied, and I hope you will too. As she walked back to her car, Iris didn't feel a sense of peace. Not yet, she conceded, but something had fundamentally shifted. The past was no longer an indistinct blur. It now had defined edges, clear angles, a discernible pattern she could finally trace. Celeste hadn't created villains, she had merely edited people, selecting their worst chapters and ruthlessly excising the rest, until all that remained was a narrative she could exploit. Iris was not going to be edited any longer. Iris had never witnessed Marlowe so subdued. The hospital visit had left both of them drained, and although Marlowe was physically recovering, the emotional burden was only just beginning to settle in. Iris had come over under the pretext of checking on her sister, yet what she truly sought was clarity, and perhaps just a glimmer of closure. Mara sat on the couch, a woolen blanket draped over her legs despite the warmth in the room. Her hair was hastily tied back, and her tea remained untouched on the coffee table. She glanced at Iris with eyes that appeared burdened by years of exhaustion. I need to confide in you, Mara said softly, barely above a whisper. Something I should have told you a long time ago. Iris leaned in, uncertain of what revelation awaited her. The air between them was thick, almost charged with unspoken words. It wasn't solely Mom, Mara continued. Back when we were teenagers, when you were dating Matthew, I actually helped her. Iris blinked, her mind grappling with the implication. Helped her? How? Mara cast her gaze downwards at her hands. She made me read your diary, claimed she was concerned you were being manipulated. I found pages detailing your relationship, your aspirations, your insecurities, and I handed them over without hesitation. Iris felt a knot tighten in her stomach, her diary, her sanctuary, her most intimate thoughts, exposed and surrendered like contraband. Then one day, Mara went on, she instructed me to write a letter, an anonymous one. She dictated it word for word. She said it was the only way to ensure he stayed away from you, that if I truly loved you, I would do it. I mailed it myself. Iris remained silent. The room had fallen into an eerie quiet. I genuinely believed I was protecting you, Mara confessed, her voice trembling. She always made it seem like the world was inherently hostile to us, that you couldn't perceive the dangers she saw. And you believed her, Iris stated softly, the hurt threading through every syllable. I was 14, Mara countered, and I desperately wanted her love. A profound silence followed. It was neither accusatory nor forgiving, just a raw, suspended quiet. I never knew she could, Mara swallowed. I never thought she'd actually do something like what happened at the wedding. I thought she was just controlling, protective in the worst possible way. But when I saw your face that night, the way you looked at the wine, the way you didn't drink it, I knew that you knew, and I didn't. And that utterly terrifies me. Iris's eyes remained fixed on the teacup nestled between them. She once told me, Mara added after a pause, that if it weren't for me, you would have ruined your life, that I had saved you, and every time I questioned her, she would reiterate it. You protected this family. You protected your sister. It made me feel important, useful. Iris finally looked up. But you didn't understand the full cost of that usefulness, did you? Mara slowly shook her head, a tear tracing a path down her cheek. I never imagined she would go that far. I didn't think I would end up being the one lying on the floor of a wedding reception, uncertain if I would even wake up. For the first time, Iris truly grasped it. The guilt was etched so deeply into Mara's face, it was difficult to tell where it ended and her features began. I believed she wanted what was best for us, Mara said. Now, I think she just craved control, and we were the most pliable subjects. Iris leaned back, her mind reeling. The betrayal now extended beyond her mother. It was layered, complex. Mara hadn't poisoned the wine, but she had, knowingly or not, laid the groundwork for a pattern of manipulation that had begun long before either of them had realized. I didn't come here seeking an apology, Iris said quietly. I came here to comprehend. And do you? Mara asked, her voice raw. I understand this, Iris responded, slowly rising. She didn't act alone. She constructed a system, one we didn't even realize we were a part of until it began to break us. Mara looked down. I want to help now, in any way I can. I know I don't deserve your trust, but I genuinely wish to earn it. Iris didn't reply immediately. She walked to the window, pulling the curtain slightly aside. Outside, a child's bicycle lay casually on the front lawn. Across the street, a woman calmly watered her garden. The world had not halted, but hers had, just a little. You can help, Iris finally said, but not by protecting me any longer, not with secrets or with silence. From this moment on, we speak the truth, even if it hurts. Especially if it hurts. Mara nodded slowly. Agreed. They sat in the ensuing quiet. There were no grand gestures, no sudden, sweeping forgiveness. Just two sisters, once fractured, now beginning to perceive the fissures in the glass that had shaped their family. And for the first time, Iris no longer felt like the sole individual grappling with these questions. She had an ally, perhaps not a flawless one, but an essential one. The conflict with Celeste had begun in the shadows, but now a glimmer of light was starting to pierce through. Celeste had always been meticulously particular about her home. Everything occupied its designated place. The house exuded the scent of lavender and precise order, every corner curated to project an image of a tranquil, graceful existence. But Iris now knew better than to trust superficial appearances. That calm was merely a veneer, and beneath it, something far colder awaited. She arrived under the pretext of retrieving a forgotten box from the wedding, a set of votive candle holders she had mentioned over the phone. Celeste had sounded warm, even cheerful. "Of course, darling, it's in the guest room closet, I think." There was no hint of suspicion in her tone, no indication that she knew Iris had started to delve deeper. Mara had offered to accompany her, but Iris had insisted on going alone. She needed to be composed, meticulous, unburdened by anyone else's anxieties. She needed to observe her mother's home, not as a daughter, but as an investigator. Inside, the house appeared exactly as she remembered, immaculate and meticulously staged. The faint strains of classical music drifted from the living room speakers. Celeste had stepped out to run errands, leaving Iris with precisely 40 minutes before her return, more than sufficient time. Instead of heading towards the guest room, Iris made her way upstairs, her heart thumping, her feet light on the hardwood floor. She knew exactly where she needed to look. Celeste's bathroom, always off limits during her childhood, always locked during parties. Iris reached for the brass doorknob and turned it slowly. This time it was unlocked. Inside, the room was fragrant with rose water and talcum powder. Everything was pristine. The marble countertop gleamed, and the mirrored cabinets reflected her slightly trembling form back at her. She stared at herself for a moment, then opened the cabinet beneath the sink. Nothing seemed out of place. Rows of lotions, bath salts, a travel-size sewing kit. She then moved to the mirrored medicine cabinet, the one positioned above the sink. Click. 3 small prescription bottles sat neatly on the second shelf, concealed behind a layer of skincare products and vitamin supplements. Iris reached for them with slow, deliberate hands, her fingers brushing against the cool plastic of the labels. Lorazepam, diazepam, and something else, a medication she hadn't seen before. It bore a longer name, cycloprene, not a very commonly prescribed drug. And all 3 bottles shared one crucial detail: Celeste Ridgway. They weren't explicitly hidden, but they weren't meant to be discovered either. Each one originated from a different pharmacy, one from the local chain on Barlow Street, another from an independent compounder on the east side, and the third from a clinic-based pharmacy 20 minutes out of town. Why so many distinct sources? The prescriptions were all recent, all within the past 4 months, and the quantities immediately raised red flags in Iris's mind. The diazepam bottle was labelled for short-term stress management, yet there were nearly 30 tablets inside a bottle originally marked for 10. The lorazepam label indicated 2 refills remaining, but the number of pills in the bottle didn't correspond to what should have been left. And the cycloprene, it had been filled just 2 weeks prior to the wedding. Iris's breath hitched. She pulled out her phone and began meticulously taking photos. On the front and back of each bottle, the label provided essential details: lot numbers, expiration dates, and the names of prescribing physicians. Her attention snagged on the cycloprene bottle. The doctor's name, Ellsworth L. Graney, was unfamiliar. She resolved to investigate this Dr. Graney later. As she continued her methodical search, an unusual calm settled over her. The persistent dread that typically seized her upon entering her mother's home had vanished, replaced by a cool, calculating anger, focused and remarkably effective. Opening a drawer, she discovered a pharmacy leaflet partially concealed beneath some tissues. It corresponded to the cycloprene bottle. She quickly unfolded it, scanning the list of side effects: dizziness, fainting, short-term memory gaps. A crucial warning, emphasized in enlarged print at the bottom, stated, "Not to be consumed with alcohol." Her mind immediately connected these details to Mara's collapse at the wedding reception, the wine consumed, and the precise symptoms displayed. Swiftly, she photographed the leaflet, then carefully refolded and replaced it exactly as found. Everything was restored to its original position. No one would suspect her presence. She meticulously wiped the counter with a tissue, ensuring no trace was left behind. Standing before the mirror, she took a deep breath and whispered, "I am not your child anymore." Downstairs, she located a box of votive holders in the guest room closet, just as Celeste had mentioned. Securing the photo on her phone, time-stamped and safe, she tucked it into her coat pocket. 20 minutes later, as her car pulled out of the driveway, her hands were steady. She now possessed proof, not yet of malicious intent, but undeniably of access, deception, and precise preparation. Celeste's facade was faltering, and for the first time, Iris was not afraid of what she might uncover beneath it. She was documenting it. The truth, once a mere suspicion, was now tangible, in photographs, dates, and names. The conflict was far from over, but she had acquired her initial weapon. The quiet stillness of her mother's street, once a source of comfort, now felt unsettling. In her childhood, it had been a haven of vibrant hydrangeas, pristine white picket fences, and porch lights glowing softly like dormant fireflies. Yet, Iris now understood the secrets harboured behind those serene shutters. What untoward things could be hidden within such an idyllic house? She parked across from Celeste's residence, though this time she had no intention of entering. Instead, she walked towards the adjacent house, her boots softly crunching on the gravel path. The lawn was impeccably manicured, and a flag swayed gently from a small pole. Mr. Elwood, who had lived there for as long as Iris could recall, was always courteous, reserved, and perpetually tending to his roses as if impervious to the passage of time. He was already outside, kneeling beside a flower bed, a trowel in one hand and a straw hat shielding his silver hair. "Mr. Elwood?" Iris said softly, careful not to startle him. He looked up, a faint smile gracing his lips. "Iris Ridgway. Haven't seen you in a while." She approached, lowering her voice. "Could we speak for a moment? It's about my mother and the night of my wedding." He did not flinch. Instead, he dusted off his hands and gestured towards the porch swing. "Let's sit." They settled down, and for a moment Iris was unsure how to begin, but Mr. Elwood spared her the trouble. "I figured you'd come sooner or later," he said, his voice dry but not unkind. "I've been meaning to speak with someone." Iris blinked. "You saw something?" He nodded. "I was in the kitchen the night of your wedding, around 10 o'clock. Couldn't sleep. My knees ache when it rains, and I'd had 2 cups of strong coffee to stay awake for the ceremony live stream." He offered a rueful smile. "I looked out the window and saw your mother in her backyard. She came out the side door wearing gloves, rubber ones, not the kind for gardening. She carried something dark, like a wine bottle, maybe thicker." Iris remained perfectly still. She walked to the storm drain behind the hydrangeas, poured whatever was in the bottle straight down, took her time, didn't fumble. It was deliberate. Afterward, she rinsed the bottle with a hose, dried it with a towel she then stuffed into a small grocery bag, and walked back in. Never once looked around. Iris swallowed. Did it seem like she was nervous? Hiding? Elwood shook his head. "No, that's what chilled me. She looked calm, practiced." He turned to her, his eyes now sharper than she remembered. "I worked in industrial chemistry for 32 years. You learn to recognize when someone is handling a chemical they shouldn't have. Her posture, her gloves, the way she avoided breathing over the liquid. It wasn't wine, it was disposal." A cold shiver ran through Iris. "Why didn't you say anything?" He reached into his cardigan and retrieved a slightly creased, folded envelope. I did, to myself. I wrote it all down that night, dated it, signed it, just in case. He handed it to her. Inside was a single sheet of paper, his handwriting neat and meticulous. The statement precisely described what he had just recounted, including times, details about the weather, and even the way Celeste had tucked the bottle under her arm as she re-entered the house. I wasn't sure what I saw would ever matter, but I know enough to trust my instincts, he added. And something about her that night felt wrong. Not frantic, just wrong. Iris carefully folded the letter, her fingers trembling. Thank you, Mr. Elwood. You may have just confirmed something I couldn't prove on my own. He nodded once. Don't know what's going on. Don't want to, frankly. But if anything happens, if this gets messy, I want someone to know I spoke up. She rose, clutching the letter. I won't forget this. He watched her for a moment. Your mother's a hard one to read, always has been. Polite, yes, charming, sure, but some folks wear masks so long they forget what their real face looks like. Be careful, Iris. As she walked back to her car, the envelope safely tucked into her coat, she felt the truth settling around her like the encroaching dusk. She wasn't imagining things. Celeste hadn't simply concocted a scheme. She had acted with deliberate intent. And now Iris had a witness, a sworn statement. Soon, if Tamsin's friend delivered, she would also have lab results. What had once been a dense fog was now solid ground. Dangerous, perhaps, but undeniably real. Celeste had tried to wash it all away, but not everything vanishes down a drain. The aroma of roast, rosemary, garlic, and just enough caramelized onion to evoke warmth and welcome filled the house. Iris had meticulously set the table for 7. The polished oak gleamed softly under dimmed lights, napkins neatly folded, wine glasses sparkling. To an outsider, it presented the picture of a family dinner poised for reconciliation. Yet, beneath every spoon and artfully folded linen, something sharper lay in wait: truth and confrontation. 4 days had passed since Iris's conversation with Mr. Elwood, and 3 since the toxicology results confirmed her gravest fear. The wine in the bottle Celeste had brought contained traces of lorazepam, a potent sedative capable of causing disorientation and collapse, particularly when combined with alcohol. Tamsin's friend had not merely confirmed it, she had been visibly alarmed. But tonight wasn't about scientific evidence, it was about revelation, and no one, especially Celeste, would see it coming. By 6:30, the guests had started to arrive. Mara entered first, moving slowly but with more stability than Iris had anticipated. Her colour had returned, though her eyes still held the lingering trauma of the wedding collapse. Reeves, Celeste's husband, followed with a hesitant smile, looking like a man uncertain of the ground beneath him. Callum, Iris's husband, kissed her cheek and helped to finish plating the salad. Dorian and Tamsin arrived together, exchanging quick glances, as if unsure of the roles they were expected to play. Then Celeste swept in. She wore pearl earrings and a silk blouse the colour of antique china, her hair impeccably styled, her lipstick flawlessly applied. She carried a lemon tart in a crystal dish, smiling as if none of them had nearly perished at her meticulously orchestrated celebration. "I'm so glad we're doing this," she said sweetly. "Families need rituals." "Yes," Iris replied, guiding her to her seat. "And they need truth, too." Dinner commenced with polite small talk, punctuated by careful bites of food. Reeves mentioned the neighbour's dog had gotten loose again. Celeste made a light-hearted joke about grandchildren. Mara barely touched her meal. Then Iris stood. "I want to share something with all of you," she announced, her voice steady. "I think it's time." She walked to the corner cabinet, opened a drawer, and retrieved a small remote control. The living room television flickered to life, displaying a loaded video. No one moved. The footage played, grainy, time-stamped, black and white. Celeste alone in the venue kitchen. 2 glasses rested on the counter. She extracted something from her purse, a dropper bottle, unscrewed it and tilted it over one glass. 1 drop. 2. Then she stirred, slowly, methodically. She gazed at her reflection in the microwave and smiled. The dinner table fell silent, utterly still. Iris remained mute, allowing the silence to stretch tautly between them like a wire. The next slide appeared. Photos of the 3 prescription bottles found in Celeste's bathroom. Lorazepam, diazepam, and another rare compound used for chemical suppression. All prescribed, but none properly documented. Iris had painstakingly noted the dosage discrepancies and dates. Then came a scanned copy of Mr. Elwood's handwritten statement. Finally, a page from Iris's old journal, torn at the edges, a line highlighted in yellow. She says I'm too emotional, too reactive. But why does she always know things I never told her? Celeste did not blink. Reeves cleared his throat. Celeste, is this real? Tamsin looked down at her hands in her lap. Mara covered her mouth with her palm. Celeste calmly picked up her wine glass and took a sip. Iris, she said gently, you always had a flair for dramatics. I'm not being dramatic, Iris countered. You tried to drug me. Celeste tilted her head. I protected you. From your poor judgment. From yourself. By poisoning me? You were marrying a man too weak to challenge you, surrounding yourself with people who feed your delusions. It would have all come crashing down eventually. Mara's voice cracked. I drank it, Mum. I'm the one who collapsed. Celeste turned to her, her eyes cold. And you lived, didn't you? Gasps rippled across the table. Iris stepped closer, her fury mounting. You meticulously orchestrated every facet of my existence. You dictated my romantic interests, selected those allowed to stand by me, prescribed the music I performed, and even chose my attire. And when your dominion over me faltered, your aim was to obliterate my very being. For the first time, Celeste's genial expression vanished, replaced by a venomous whisper. Iris, I fashioned you. Every facet of the woman you embody, your preferences, your sensibilities, your principles, stems not from liberty, but from rigorous discipline. My discipline. Iris leaned closer, her voice steady. And now I can bear the truth, even if that truth reveals your absence of love for us, your sole purpose being our confirmation to your idealized image. Celeste slowly rose from her chair, her voice chilling the atmosphere. You believe exposing me empowers you, yet I retain the capacity to dismantle everything you are. I brought you into existence, and I can erase you. Iris remained unflustered. Her gaze swept across the table, noting the shock, the silence, and the gradual understanding dawning in faces long accustomed to feigning contentment. You will no longer define me, Iris declared. Celeste offered no reply, merely walking towards the door, her heels tapping a funereal rhythm. She paused, hand on the doorknob. This family was flawless, she murmured. No, Iris countered. It was silent, and we are no longer consenting to silence. As the door clicked shut, Iris exhaled. Her hands trembled almost imperceptibly, yet her posture remained resolute. The room around her resonated with the profound weight of revelation. A new chapter had begun, irrevocably. 3 days following the family dinner, Iris discovered an anomaly in her email inbox. A response from a gallery she'd engaged with for months, despite her recent lack of correspondence. The message read, We regret to learn of your decision not to proceed. We wish you success in your future endeavours. She blinked. That makes no sense, she thought. Scrolling down, she located the supposedly original message from her. It was sharp, supercilious. I do not require your empathy. Keep your pseudo-progressive validation to yourselves. It concluded with her complete name and signature. The timing, the tone, it was clearly intended to sever connections, and it had nearly succeeded. Iris reclined, her fingertips cold on the keyboard. This was no random occurrence. It was a personal attack. She contacted the gallery, explaining the situation with a calm yet firm voice. Fortunately, they were receptive. The curator confirmed the email originated from a very similar address, differing by only one letter, a fabrication. Callum returned that evening, his shoulders rigid, his jaw clenched. "They froze the pitch," he announced, dropping his satchel. "The Austin film crew. Someone alerted them that I'm implicated in an ongoing investigation. They didn't name names, but honestly, who else could it be?" He didn't need to elaborate. "Celeste, I'm so sorry," Iris whispered. He shook his head. "She's laying waste to everything, not just for you, but for everyone connected to you." The following day, Mara called in a panic. "You won't believe this. Theo's school, the principal pulled me aside. They received an anonymous letter." Iris tightened her grip on the phone. "What did it say?" "That I'm mentally unstable? That I've had episodes and could pose a danger to other children?" It was phrased like a concerned neighbour quietly reporting something. "But Iris, it's Celeste's phrasing." "I recognise it. She used those very words about Aunt Francine. Remember the one who disinherited her?" Iris closed her eyes, her throat constricting. "Are they taking it seriously?" "They said it's merely a routine check, but I saw the way they looked at me, as if weighing whether I was lying." Mara sounded more hurt than angry. "She's weaponizing motherhood against me again." Later that afternoon, Tamsin dropped by. Her face was paler than usual, eyes bloodshot. "I received something this morning," she said, holding up her phone. "An anonymous message, no name, no context." Iris read the stark, chilling text on the screen. "This isn't your story. Walk away." "Burner number?" Iris inquired. Tamsin nodded. "I traced the area code. Fool's Grove, Celeste's neighbourhood." Iris paced the kitchen. "She's trying to isolate me, to dismantle my support system, one by one." "She's intensifying her efforts," Tamsin observed. "And we haven't even pressed charges yet. What will happen if we do?" The question lingered between them. Iris recalled Celeste's expression that night. Not anger, not fear, but pure calculation. She wasn't daunted by exposure. She feared losing the illusion of her own irrelevance. "This is her war," Iris finally stated. "We didn't initiate it, but we absolutely must conclude it." As the outside shadows deepened, she opened her laptop, not for social media or frivolous browsing, but to construct the compelling case that could, once and for all, publicly shatter Celeste's facade. Iris sat at her dining room table, her laptop open, camera adjusted, lighting optimized not for aesthetic appeal, but for absolute clarity. The resulting video lacked glossiness and theatrical staging. It was raw, honest, and disarmingly calm. She refrained from naming individuals, for it was unnecessary. "This is a narrative concerning a mother," her voice began, and the clandestine conflict she waged behind a veneer of polished smiles. She meticulously pieced together months of footage, security camera clips, discreetly blurred to safeguard identities, scanned prescriptions, the audio from Lockwood's recorded testimony, and excerpts from journal entries, including her own. Mara's voice then joined in, not from a professional studio, but from the comfort of Iris's apartment sofa. "She compelled me to end things with Elise," Mara recounted, her voice cracking. "We were 17. She insisted it wasn't genuine affection, that I was merely confused. I didn't even resist. I believed if Mum deemed it wrong, it must be." 2 hours later, Callum published his post, entitled, "Her mum offered me $20,000 to walk away." He recounted the clandestine meeting in a quiet cafe, the envelope, the thinly veiled threat, and his apprehension about her potential actions if he refused. "I mistakenly believed that my silence would protect the woman I cherish," he wrote. "It turns out, Silence was precisely what her mother desired. Then Dorian stepped forward. He shared scanned copies of the photographs Celeste had manipulated to dismantle their relationship, cropped and misleading, alongside their original versions. "She didn't fabricate them," he stated in a video interview. "She distorted the truth. That is her modus operandi." By nightfall, Iris uploaded the entirety as a long-form video essay titled "The Invisible War at Home." It ran for 43 minutes. Within 3 hours, it had garnered 10,000 views. Podcasts began featuring it, Reddit threads multiplied, and a family therapist reshared it on Twitter, proclaiming it the most accurate depiction of covert parental control I've witnessed in years. Mara received an invitation to speak at a local community event for adult children of narcissistic parents. She hesitated, but Iris encouraged her. "It's your narrative too," she asserted. "Embrace it." Callum's post reached 80,000 views by week's end. The comments spanned from expressions of support to abject horror, with many sharing uncannily similar experiences. "My mother-in-law did the exact same thing," one commenter wrote. "Everyone told me I was being overly dramatic. Thank you for validating my experience." Iris paid no mind to the viewership numbers. Whether it went viral was inconsequential. What truly mattered was the palpable shift, the burgeoning cracks in the silence surrounding Celeste. At the annual Garden Society luncheon, Celeste arrived in her customary pastel suit, her pearls glinting, but an unspoken alteration was evident. No one rose to greet her. Whispers flitted through the room, eyes darted away. One woman quietly gathered her purse and relocated to another table. By the time the dessert tray circulated, Celeste rose, bid farewell to no one, and departed. She wasn't officially banned, but she was being systematically erased from the social spotlight she once commanded. That night, Iris received a message from an unknown account. Not a threat, simply 4 words. "So, you want a war?" She stared at it for a protracted moment, then replied with 3. "It already started." Celeste Ridgely had always possessed an innate ability to enter a room as if by divine right. Her presence was authoritative, her tone sharp yet courteous, her smile a strategic weapon for any occasion. But now, no rooms remained that desired her presence. In the weeks succeeding Iris's video and the public disclosures from Callum, Mara, and Dorian, Celeste remained silent. No lawsuits, no rebuttals, not even a passive-aggressive phone call to her daughters. This silence was almost more unsettling than outright aggression. She withdrew from every aspect of her former life. The Garden Society quietly removed her from their committee email chain. The church group she once led decided to rotate leadership, and she received no invitation to return. A local women's mentoring panel, where she had been a founding advisor, issued a vague statement concerning a review of standards of conduct. Her phone rang less frequently. Messages ceased arriving. The women with whom she had once enjoyed Sunday brunches unfollowed her social media accounts one by one. She uploaded no updates, not even altering her profile picture. Weeks later, Iris caught a glimpse of her at a supermarket across town. Not the familiar local one where Celeste habitually exchanged pleasantries with every cashier. She wore oversized sunglasses and a long scarf wrapped unnecessarily high around her neck, despite the mild 50-degree temperature. She moved with a hurried pace, snatching a box of crackers before ducking into the cleaning aisle upon noticing Iris at the checkout. It wasn't fear that prompted her concealment, but rather shame, or perhaps the bruised pride of someone who had never contemplated the loss of her influence. Mara, too, had seen her just once, outside the elementary school, parked some distance away in an unfamiliar vehicle. "She didn't get out," Mara recounted to Iris. "She just sat there, as if she wished to observe me picking up my child, but couldn't bear to be seen doing it. I almost felt sympathy for her," Mara added softly. "Almost." But Iris felt no pity. She felt the spaciousness of absence. The quiet void left by Celeste in her daily life represented the first true breath of freedom she had experienced in years. She no longer felt compelled to justify her attire choices. She called old friends without hesitation, free from the apprehension that someone might have been subtly warned off behind her back. She could laugh without fear of condemnation, cry without being labelled dramatic, and live without constantly anticipating the next subtle critique disguised as maternal solicitude. Tamsin was awarded a grant program and extended an invitation to Iris for a collaborative art project exploring emotional coercion and the reclamation of narratives. Concurrently, Dorian embarked on a new relationship with a kind individual uninterested in convoluted emotional games. Callum's firm, noting the viral success of his story and his composed handling of the situation, offered him a partnership track. Mara, meanwhile, recommenced therapy, this time on her own terms, while Celeste remained in a profound silence. She wasn't entirely gone. She still occupied the same dwelling, still tended to her garden, yet her world had contracted, narrowing to the confines of four walls and fading photographs of a family that no longer responded to her communications. There was no judicial proceeding, no prison sentence, but her retribution was unmistakably clear. Silence, an absence of celebratory dinners, no meticulously planned birthdays, no holidays spent with the family she had sought to dominate. Her meticulously crafted life, built upon manipulation and calculated prevarications, had thoroughly disintegrated from within. And Iris? Iris did not triumph through vengeance. Her victory came through revelation. By articulating her truth, she robbed Celeste of the power to distort it. She didn't require the final word. She had already reclaimed her own existence. It was a tranquil morning when Iris sensed an intricate, deeply rooted shift within her. Not terror, not suspicion, nor even sorrow, but something altogether different. Life. She stood in the bathroom, her hands gently pressed against her abdomen, the pregnancy test quietly resting on the counter behind her, displaying a positive result. The atmosphere around her did not fill with dread or panic. Instead, it felt akin to stepping into a sunlit expanse after a protracted winter. No internal voices dictated what she should feel or what steps to take next. Only the steady, grounded rhythm of her own breathing. Callum returned home to discover her in the garden, barefoot on the damp earth, a smile gracing her face like someone finally emerging from a windowless room after years of confinement. When she shared her news, he remained speechless initially, simply kneeling beside her and clasping her hand as if it were the most natural gesture imaginable. This time, the future arrived unburdened by obligations. There were no stipulations to merit affection, no expectations to demonstrate gratitude, no facades to adopt. The nursery was diminutive, yet to be painted, but Iris remained unperturbed. She now possessed both time and freedom, a freedom not loud or ostentatious, but the quiet prerogative to be utterly and wholly herself. She considered Celeste only once during those initial weeks, not with fury nor with yearning, but with a simple clarity. She did not transmit a message. She did not compose a confrontation. Instead, she placed a blank sheet of stationery into an envelope, signing it with only 3 words. I'm done. No elaboration, no recapitulation, no consent sought. Merely her resolute choice, made without theatrics or display. And that, unequivocally, sufficed. Weeks later, on a vibrant Saturday morning, Iris ambled through a park at the town's periphery, her steps unhurried, her abdomen now gently rounded. The baby kicked once, a soft greeting. She found a bench beneath a blossoming dogwood tree and sat, observing the breeze waft petals across the grass like tiny, drifting aspirations. Callum had stepped away to fetch iced tea from a nearby cafe. The park was serene, peaceful, fragrant with the clean, forgiving scent of early spring. Then, from across the path, Iris noticed her. Celeste, standing by the playground fence, half shrouded in shadow, half in sunlight, appearing older, somehow diminished. No pearls, no immaculate makeup, just a plain coat and a scarf she didn't genuinely require. Their gazes met. Celeste offered no words. She took a single step forward, her eyes falling to the gentle swell of Iris's stomach. At that moment, the child, still unborn, still merely a promise, kicked again. Iris subtly shifted her hand, a protective, calm gesture, her gaze unwavering. Celeste parted her lips, but no sound emerged, and for the first time in her life, she did not push, did not approach, did not pre-script a moment she could orchestrate. She retreated. Iris remained motionless. There was no triumph in her eyes, only tranquility, and as a gentle breeze lifted the edge of her coat and the child within her stirred once more, Iris looked up at the sky, not in supplication, not in regret, but in profound gratitude for the personal space she had carved out, the space to embody something entirely her own, a mother, a woman, an individual unshaped by another's shadow. And as the park settled into the late morning stillness, she whispered, not to Celeste, nor to the trees, not even to the baby, but to herself. I used to live under her shadow. Now I stand where it doesn't reach. If you've made it this far, thank you. Iris's narrative is not solely a tale of survival. It profoundly illustrates the essence of reclaiming power through quiet conviction and the arduous but necessary process of drawing clear lines, even with someone who raised you. This account extends beyond a mere wedding or a poisoned glass of wine. It delves into the intricate subject of emotional inheritance, the unseen burdens we carry from our families, often unaware they are causing us profound internal wounds. While some individuals are nurtured by love, others are raised by control, cleverly disguised as concern, or affection interwoven with fear. Yet, what Iris powerfully reminds us is this: the mere act of giving life does not grant anyone the perpetual right to dictate its course. Now, I eagerly anticipate hearing from you. Have you ever felt compelled to establish boundaries with a loved one solely to safeguard your inner peace? Have you ever recognized manipulation only when it was almost too late? Please share your reflections in the comments below. Your perspective holds immense value. Your story matters. And if this narrative resonated with you, if it made you feel understood, or simply brought to mind a long-suppressed memory, please consider subscribing to our channel. We are committed to sharing authentic stories that illuminate the silent battles many of us fight behind closed doors. Furthermore, if you know someone who truly needs to hear this particular story, do not hesitate to share it, because sometimes a single narrative is all it takes to empower another to reclaim their voice. We will return with more. Stay resilient, stay authentic, and above all, stay free.